This was a very tense episode and really just reminded me of some of the kind of sneaking missions in many of the Assassin's Creed games. Very well done.
Hunter x Hunter, Episode 49, Pursuit and Analysis.
Well, I like these Phantom Troop members, you know. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and action-packed and just really mind-bending tale of Hunter x Hunter. Now, our last episode saw us with a little bit of a departure from the action side of things, and really kind of just showing Gon and Killua in more of a calm, relaxed setting. The ultimate end game of what happened is they wound up meeting a guy named Zapil, and he is a master appraiser and is going to help them to sell some of their items in the marketplace or maybe through the auction or what have you. So, and then at the end of it, because they'd kind of put out some, they'd put out a reward basically for tips on where the Phantom, any locations to the whereabouts of any of the Phantom Troop members were. Leorio goes and gives them a call and says, "Hey, listen, I got a credible tip, and we got to go." So that was how the episode left off, and this one picks up right there. It's Leorio, and well, first we wind up seeing two of the Phantom Troop members sitting out in public. And remind you that it's for them to be out in public, to me, shows some big balls, because the Mafia is after them, okay, for what happened. So the Mafia has put out the word on the street and has been putting out, basically these 2 billion Jenny hits on them. You bring them back and this is what you get, reward, But they got balls. So it's Machi and the pink-haired girl and Nobunaga, who I actually like. He was pretty funny. He was the one that got actually caught in the car when the car got shrunk up by that shadow beast owl. Anyways, so Nobunaga has let his hair down a little bit and he's dressed a little more for in his civilian clothing, and they're sitting there just relaxing at this kind of like outdoor venue, that you can sit there with tables and chairs, an outdoor cafe. And Leorio and Gon and Killua are all just kind of spying on them from their own little table up in, looks like the second floor, maybe third floor of a building, like a restaurant, and they're sitting in there. And the whole first half of it's fairly tense because Killua goes and at one point is just like, "We can't beat them," And Leorio was like, "What the hell are you talking about? We can't beat them." And Killua goes and explains to me, he says, "Listen, a few years ago, there was a hit put out on one of the Phantom Troop members or whatever, that his family obviously took or whatever, and his father, right, who we assume is one of the greatest assassins of all living assassins, basically had said, gave the Phantom Troop the highest compliment that you could give, and he said, they're not even worth it. They're not worth the money, they're not worth the bounty. They're not. They're so much of a pain in the ass." And Killua, he says, "I hope things had maybe changed in the last few years, right?" But really, what the end game here is because Leorio still just doesn't get it, and he's like, "Would it help you? Would it help you to picture it better if you picture two Hisokas sitting down there right now? We can't defeat them, right?" So anyway, they wind up going, and as we go back and forth between the two, Machi and Nobunaga are talking about how they presume that Uvo is maybe dead. Now, we know, of course, that Uvo is dead, but that really there hasn't been, he hasn't returned, there hasn't been any word, and the last thing he said was that he wasn't returning until he took out the chain user, which we know is to be Kurapika. So as they talk a little bit about it, and the whole idea for them sitting out here is that they were told by Crollo, by their boss, the Phantom Troop boss, to basically sit here and to be out in public to draw out, hopefully, Kurapika, right? So anyway, as they wind up getting up to go and leave, and this is after a period of time, and as I said, it's a very tense episode because you keep wondering, like, when somebody's going to get caught or found out. Well, anyway, what winds up happening is Gon and Killua says, "Listen, we'll follow them, but Gon, you have to two things. You have to, one, if I feel that they've caught on to our presence or what have you, we're gone, right? And number two, if for any reason I think that it's just too much or that it's the location they're going to or the area, I basically just say I feel like that we need to call. If you have to listen to me, So Gon agrees, and they're going to go and follow them. They send Leorio off to find Zapil and get things going with the auction. And what I like, though, is how they explain is about how the Phantom Troop members, they don't care. They can sense that there's somebody watching them, but they cannot sense where they are or how many or whatever, And a lot of that is just because of the fact that, Gon and Killua, and we even wind up finding out, it's really funny, Killua says, "Gon, have you ever followed anybody?" He says, "Well, not really. I mean, during the Hunter exam, I followed Hisoka for a day." And he's like, and Killua's like, "What? You followed Hisoka for a day without him noticing you?" And he's like, "Well, yeah." So So Gon, we already know, is able to mask his presence pretty well. But, they even explain that using Zetsu to mask their presence will only draw more attention to them from the Phantom Troop members, So it's neat to see this cat and mouse game played out during the course of the episode, because as they get up and leave and we see it reminds me almost of Assassin's Creed, the game just the series in general. There's several missions in each one of these games where you have to follow somebody without being noticed, and if you get too close or you're not concealed enough within the crowd or up on a building or what have you, and somebody sees you and they're alerted to your presence, you wind up failing the mission. And that's kind of how I felt, because Gon and Killua are communicating with one another as they're going and taking up different vantage points on these buildings. And, Killua is looking for any sign. He knows the Phantom Troop is dangerous. He knows it's the real deal. And even though Killua, you can see Killua still has a lot of growing to do, too, because Gon tells him at one point, be careful, just as his friend. It's just a genuine thing, right? And Killua's like, be careful. I've been following people since I was 3 in life or death situations. Yeah, good for you, buddy. The problem with him is that he really feels he's got this sense of self-entitlement that he's the best, and anybody else who takes any of his glory, like Gon, he gets pissed off about it. It's very much a jealous, jealous little brother type of thing. But you see the screwed up family he grew up in too, and it's like, okay, do you wonder why he's a little bit out there? Anyway, so as during the course of the episode unfolds, they wind up following him. Eventually, Machi and Nobunaga wind up just kind of stopping in this open area with just some abandoned buildings around there, right? And during the course of this first half of the episode happening, we wind up seeing Krollo and what's his name? Shelnark, yeah, Shelnark. And the dude that has the hunter license that was getting some information for Uvo before. And he winds up alerting Krollo to the fact that the Nostrad family, obviously it's his daughter Neon. They, kind of presume that Neon is the reason for the Nostrad family's rise to fame and wealth within, the mafia and what have you. And then Krollo we wind up seeing at some point. We don't see his face, but he goes and he's got like a suit and tie on. It looks like he's going undercover for something. And we presume that he's maybe going to take care of or try to capture maybe somebody from the Nostrad family. I don't know. Hoping maybe he can get a ransom, or maybe he can utilize Neon for his own purposes. Not really sure about that. We also see a brief scene where actually the Nostrad family, the head of him, Light Nostrad, is there and says, hey, the auction's called off, and and he basically has got his bodyguards all around, Kurapika and Melody and all that, and Basho, and says, listen, you two are going to take her to the airport basically to get her out of here, and that's, the auction's canceled, this and that. As soon as Neon goes to pack his daughter and leaves, because he doesn't want to let on, because she's a little crazy little girl that just wants to do whatever she wants to do. She doesn't give a shit about the danger and everything else and all the people that have to give their lives to protect her dumb ass. She just wants what she wants. She's a spoiled, entitled little brat. And anyway, so as she goes off to pack, he goes and says, listen, here's the deal. The mafia wants to go and they've brought in assassins, so, and then they go and they actually show what's his name from Killua's family, from the Zoldyck family, his father, I forget his name for the life of me, but anyway, you know who I'm saying. They show a picture of him and then a few other just really cool looking like assassins. So basically, assassins have been contracted to take out, these Phantom Troop members, so they know that the Mafia is still going to go on with the auction anyway, but they need to recover the items, and it all winds up coming down to the whole thing with the Shadow Beasts and Owls, the only body that hasn't been found. They presume that the Phantom Troop has all this shit, but basically what it is it's Kurapika going and getting free reign to go after the Phantom Troop members from his boss, and the thing that I thought was kind of significant, I guess, too, I don't know if it'll play into, is that Kurapika did not seem to share the information that he had taken out one of the Phantom Troop members already in Uvo. He's keeping that very close to those cards very close to his vest. So anyway, so we know that he's going to be on the trail of them and has kind of been given permission to say, hey, we're not going to let the not going to let the assassins take all the glory. So so we know that's going to happen. Then we go back to, where they're standing out. You've got, obviously, the two Phantom Troop members being watched, Nobunaga and Machi being watched at a distance from these buildings, these abandoned buildings, by Gon and Killua. Gon and Killua are talking to each other, and they're about to go and kind of pull out because there's really nowhere to go. There's nowhere else. They're like, hey, they're waiting, or they're trying to bait somebody into a trap. Killua's freaking, right? So Nobunaga winds up taking a phone call, and who is it but his buddy Finks, right? So he's talking to Finks, and he's like, okay, blah, blah, and this and that. And then all of a sudden, it's great because Killua goes, and as soon as he's going to go and turn, he just wants to go and dart out of the room. He tells Gon, let's go, let's just go. He sees a reaction from them that he doesn't like. goes to turn for the door, and boom, Finks is standing in the doorway to the abandoned building, the room that Killua's in, right? So Killua's ass goes, he's like, and I mean, he just freaking just crazy ass, like Sonic the Hedgehog, bounces around the room, right? Then tries to go and distract this guy with some rocks he throws up to him, tries to kick him. Finks grabs his leg and holds him. He digs himself into the ground and then turns himself around to get, to basically get free from him. But this is the strength of the Phantom Troop members. Killua, as strong as he and as much as he is, and as much of a badass as he is, does not even seem to stand a chance against just one of them. Then Killua goes and turns to look at the window, and Nobunaga has just, and he's like, we're on the 4th floor. Nobunaga has just like appeared inside the window, right? So these dudes are the real deal, Then we go and we see that Gon, he's actually been cornered by, she's the short skirt wearing cleavage, I think her name is Pakunoda. She's like the really hot Phantom Troop member. She's got like a really weird, like not so hot face, And again, this is just anime, so obviously it's not, it's not real. But she's got like massive like tits and cleavage going on here, and just has this total like super hooker, slutty businesswoman, attire on, where her like skirt is so short that's like you can almost see her camel toe popping out of from the bottom of it. But anyway, so she winds up cornering Gon, and then Machi winds up coming up behind. So Gon's with the two chicks, the two hotties, and it goes back and forth. And there's a series of questions that they're being asked, and they're basically told to answer honestly. So Gon winds up just answering honestly. They're both asked about the chain user, right? And they haven't seen Kurapika in a while, so they have no idea that he has control over these chains and everything else now. So they have no idea what he's talking about. And they genuinely answer the question like, no, we don't know. And then I liked it because Killua was asked a series of questions, how he learned this, how he learned that, and Killua does a good job of basically just answering the questions kind of truthfully, but really just sort of leaving out parts that would be, super important, and basically just saying, hey, listen, we're after you guys because there's a huge bounty, even just for any information on your location, so... and hey, we know about the 4 basic principles in Nen, but kind of like we were just these kids trying to eventually become hunters, So some of what he says is true, but he omits certain details, which I thought was really good. Anyway, the last question that's asked of him is, and Nobunaga says, do you want to die now or later, right? And you have 3 seconds to answer, and I'm like, oh, fuck, So then it goes to Gon, and he's with the two chicks or whatever, and then they get a call, and they're like, okay, your friend gave up, So then all of them are riding in the in a limo, whatever, a car, and he's got Gon and Killua, like 2 kids that just got caught, like graffiti in the gym wall at their school or something like that with spray paint, and they're just kind of sitting there like, oh man, there ain't shit they can do, Gon for one moment tried to actually think he could escape or whatever, but Machi just was like was behind him and had his hands on her hands on his shoulders, and was like, don't even try it. And I just really like how the whole thing was portrayed. And the neat thing is that Machi and Nobunaga didn't even have any idea that Chrollo had gone. They thought that Chrollo had just sent them out to try to draw out the chain user. They had no idea that Chrollo had went and almost like, not double-crossed, but almost didn't give them any more information about that, so they truly believed that they were just trying to draw out the chain user, when in reality he had Finks and Pakunoda backing them up to come in and to trap whoever it was that was coming after. So it was very well done. The episode ends off, though, with them all walking into that kind of rundown, abandoned building, church / Phantom Troop base or whatever, and you see some of the Phantom Troop members sitting in there, and you're thinking, oh, fuck, now Gon and Killua have been captured, right? And Hisoka is part of the Phantom Troop, how's that going to play out? Is he going to go and, is he going to go and let on anything? Are they going to go and be smart enough to not go and when they see him, make any mention of that they know him or have any connection? Are they going to be able to mask that from the other members? And very, very cool stuff. And this whole thing plays out very well about just how you can sense things and feel things. It almost reminds me of like a really good description of like the use of the Force in Star Wars. In Star Wars, they alluded to some of the things in the first set of movies, and then in the second set, it wound up being all this crap about these antibodies and these metachlorians that are basically like cells in your body and everything else. Really the payoff wasn't very good for it. But the potential that was there was that it was this. There were certain people that could kind of tap into this all-worldly force around you. You know what I mean? And it almost reminds me of some of the principles and some of the uses of Nen about auras and just just being able to project this, or being able to mask this presence, or being able to sense that there's somebody following you, but not knowing where from because they're able to mask their presence. Very, very cool stuff. My episode question for you, though, brothers and sisters, is ultimately, you know, and I guess this is, I don't know if this is wind up being a spoiler here, but you know, what are your thoughts on them getting captured and how things are going to go down now with the Phantom Troop? Leave your answer to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We look forward to catching all of you hunters in the next one, Nation.
Remember to follow me on my other channel and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram too.